story of Bokito, a silverback gorilla who seriously injured a woman who believed she and the great ape shared a special bond. In this video, we'll see what happens when facts are ignored and animals are undervalued, both by their handlers and by those who claim to love them. What happened and why? This and other questions will be answered in the video. Welcome to Wild Assault. Gorillas are the world's largest great apes. There are two gorilla species, the western gorilla and the eastern gorilla, each with 4 or 5 subspecies. They live in African troops led by one adult, male or silverback, several females, and their offspring. Silverbacks are always male gorillas, over the age of 12, with a patch of silver hair on their backs, indicating maturity. Believe it or not, the enormous animals share 95–99% of their genetic code with humans. It's visible in their human-like hands and small bright eyes set into hairless faces. Even their facial expressions can be startlingly similar to ours. But make no mistake about it, they are still animals. Although gorillas are widely regarded as gentle creatures who prefer peace and quiet, they can become enraged quickly if they feel threatened. And you don't want to enrage these creatures. They are far more powerful than any human. In fact, an adult gorilla's upper body strength is 6 times greater than that of an adult human. And if their massive muscles aren't enough to convince you to keep your distance, perhaps their teeth will. Long, sharp canines are used to grind tough plant material and defend against other male gorillas competing for dominance. Their bite force is 1,300 psi, which is more than enough to chomp through layers of flesh and bone. Bokito, the protagonist of this story, was 11 years old and already a silverback gorilla in May 1827. The male western gorilla was born in a zoo in Berlin. Bokito was hand-raised by human attendants after his mother abandoned him at birth. However, only a year and a half before the incident, Hokkaido would become infamous. The male gorilla had to be relocated to Rotterdam Zoo in the Netherlands. The reason for his change of scenery was straightforward. Hokkaido was simply too accustomed to humans to exhibit the desired group behavior. In other words, Bokito's time as a spoiled baby at the Berlin Zoo may have made him more likely to interact with humans rather than his fellow gorillas in terms of changing his habitat. Specialists also hope to reduce the risk of inbreeding among their gorillas and increase the chances of both children living normal lives. Aquino seemed to do well once he arrived at the dockyard of Blijdorp Zoo in Rotterdam. He spent his days inside his enclosure in the zoo's great apes section. Visitors were drawn to the 11-year-old silverback, but none were more enthralled by Hokkaido than 57-year-old Petronella Yvonne De Horde. The woman and her husband went to Bokito nearly every day, sometimes more than 4 times a week. The hoarder believed she and Bokito had a special bond. It appeared to her that when she smiled at him, he smiled back. She adored the gorilla. In fact, their history predates the animal's relocation to Rotterdam. The woman had photos and videos of Bokito dating back to when he was only 4 months old, a baby gorilla at the Berlin Zoo. Nothing could ever stand in their way. A zoo caretaker warned the woman about her potentially dangerous behavior several days before the incident that left her injured at the hands and teeth of her beloved gorilla. The caretaker told her not to approach Bokito and not to look him in the eyes. Prolonged eye contact can be interpreted as a sign of trust by humans, a simple gesture that most mammals interpret as an emotional connection and mutual understanding. Eye contact, on the other hand, is a sign of dominance, aggression, a threat, and an invitation to violence. It is disliked by even pets. Obviously, staring a silverback gorilla in the eyes is not a good idea. However, the hoarder chose to disregard the warning, which proved to be a costly mistake. The woman and her husband returned to the zoo on May 18, 2007. They were frequent visitors to Bokito's, as you already know. But the weather wasn't ideal for visiting or staring at the gorilla. Moquina, according to various sources, was dissatisfied Visitors had seen children throwing stones at the gorilla earlier that day, which obviously irritated the animal. Perhaps De Horde and her husband were unaware of the incident. They proceeded in their usual manner. As they approached Bokito's enclosure and spent some time looking at him, a loud splash filled the air as they made their way toward the small apes in Africa's section. Then there was chaos. Hokkaido had escaped from his confinement. It was perplexing. The gorilla had not only climbed a tall wall, but he had also crossed a moat, overcoming his natural lack of swimming abilities. People rushed to take cover, shielding their crying children from the C-400 ape. However, it was clear that Bokito was only interested in Petronella, the hoarder. When he got to the woman, he grabbed her arm. The gorilla crushed her wrist and lower arm to stop his hand, but it wasn't over yet. When the horde first felt the powerful teeth sinking into her flesh, the silverback sat with his full weight on the woman and bared his long, sharp canines and bit her several times. She was certain she would die. She didn't do it. Hokkaido, on the other hand, dragged her around by her severely injured arm, making his way to the zoo's restaurant where several people had sought refuge. Ito's mouth was covered in blood on both sides. His rage did not abate as he entered the restaurant. Instead, the silverback gorilla raged on, smashing windows, chairs, and tables. Bokito's rampage came to an end when he was finally sedated with a tranquilizer and returned to his cage. Following the accident, the case received widespread media coverage, with people attempting to find possible explanations for the silverback's behavior or even taking sides. One zookeeper stated immediately after the attack, "The gorilla may not have found the horde submissive enough when she sought eye contact with him, while the woman underwent at least 2 rounds of surgery." Her husband told the media that he was certain Bokito had targeted his wife, and he accused the zoo of knowing the gorilla was a risk of eluding capture. Bokito had previously escaped his enclosure, according to Hardy's husband. Meanwhile, the Dutch media covered primatologists, biologists, and even philosophers. Some of them had strange explanations for what had occurred. According to them, the attack was motivated by love rather than rage. They claimed that Hokkaido was probably in love with the woman, and that seeing her every day without being able to approach her frustrated and angered him. The zoo's director denied these allegations. He didn't fall in love with her because gorillas never do. According to reporters, this is a ridiculous and inappropriate translation of human behavior to a ponderous state. The man did not, however, rule out the possibility that Bokito simply wanted to integrate the horde into his group, given that she'd made a habit of contacting the gorilla, forcing him to respond, and then abandoning him. But what do you believe caused this occurrence? Was it love, rage, or a combination of negligence and ignorance? Please let me know in the comments section,